Are you in need of background noise while you draw your OCs? Well, I've got you covered. Here is 30 plus minutes of art commentary. From AI art debates to problematic art styles, we're discussing it all. Grab your pencils, grab your drawing tablets, because it's time to begin. Quick side note, the characters you'll see in the background are my OCs. They are hosts of an edutainment show led by a suspiciously eccentric show creator, Martha. If you want to see more of them, follow my Instagram @starrygazer. Now, on to the commentary. Let's start with a loaded topic, stealing art styles. When I talk about stealing art styles, I imagine most of you either really agree or really disagree that this is even a thing, but I think the true answer lies somewhere in the middle. First, let's define what it means to steal an art style. Stealing an art style means heavily referencing a certain artist's style, to the point where people may mistake your art for the original creator. It often also involves tracing their art, which we'll get into later. Typically, big creators within the community deal with stolen art styles, such as the drama with Purica telling people to stop stealing / heavily referencing their style. Let's start with the argument that art style theft isn't real. When people claim that art style theft isn't a thing, they typically reference the quote, "Good artists copy, great artists steal" by Picasso. Art styles are made by merging together everything that's ever inspired us, after all. Believing that you can steal an art style contradicts the very process of how art styles are made. Where this argument falters is in a misunderstanding of that process though. Yes, to make an art style, you have to reference other artists, but the issue lies in the amount of artists. If you reference 5 different artists and use that to create a style, you'll get something completely unique. People may be able to see a few spots of inspiration, but overall, it looks like it's your own thing. Art style theft comes in when you instead only draw from one inspiration. You copy the way they draw the eyes, the face, the proportions, the color themes, the clothing design, to the point where your art and their art are indistinguishable. You've no longer made your own style. You've made the Temu version of someone else's style. The issue of referencing too heavily usually affects beginners and young artists, as they find their art idols and strive to be as skilled as them, so much that they resort to copying them. In my opinion at least, most art theft isn't done out of malintent or to deceive others. It's done out of admiration and envy. Thing is, intention doesn't negate hurt. When you've practiced and studied until you finally make an art style that you're proud of, something that is uniquely your own, referencing all the media and artists that inspired you throughout your journey, seeing someone come in and try to heavily replicate that feels off. Like, they technically haven't stolen any art from you directly, but it still doesn't feel right. Not all big artists feel this way, of course. Some find it admirable or remember their early days in art, heavily referencing their own favorite artists. Some may not even speak on their discomfort with their art style being heavily referenced, as it may be seen as sending hate to smaller creators. I think artists are valid to put up boundaries in their bios, asking people not to heavily reference their art, as long as they don't put small creators doing the referencing on blast. Art style theft may be a somewhat real thing, but I also don't think that gives people the right to go around accusing others of stealing art styles either. Like I said before, sometimes this comes from beginners / young artists who are new to the art community and don't know that it's a taboo. There's no need to harass or insult them for making that mistake. If you really feel that their referencing is egregious, like to the point of tracing other artists' work, light constructive criticism is all you gotta give. Some may accuse artists who happen to have similar art styles of copying, even though that wasn't their intention. Some people just have similar styles or draw from the same inspirations. Again, it's typically better to just scroll past if you feel someone is copying someone else's style and keep supporting the original artist. To conclude, art style theft is a somewhat real thing. It's not right to heavily reference / trace other artists' work, but it's also not an issue worth harassing small beginner artists over. I'm actually curious if you guys agree or disagree that art style theft is a thing. This topic is quite divided. Let me know your own thoughts in the comments and I'll check them out. That applies for any of these these opinions actually. If you have something to add to the conversation, comment it and we'll discuss. If you're doing commissions, you should be familiar with how to draw different body types and colors. To start, this opinion is not a morality thing. I don't want it to be misinterpreted as that. The subjects of your drawings depend both on your own bias in what you find appealing and on the people you see around you, both in real life and online. My friend group has a mix of people of different races, genders, and sizes, so my characters also vary in those aspects. If you're somewhere where you're exposed to a certain type of person, then that's gonna carry through to your drawings. I disagree with people who claim artists that let these biases slip into their work are racist, fatphobic, etc. Unless they're doing something egregious like making a character 10 shades lighter, you can give them the benefit of the doubt. Beginners are going to make mistakes. Even experienced people can slip up. All that's needed is some constructive criticism. When I say you should be familiar with drawing different races and body types, I mean having some basic knowledge is useful. Skin color is already done for you. There are many pre-made palettes online, so in my opinion, there's not much of an excuse there. When it gets to more detailed styles, it may take more practice as rendering darker tones is different to lighter tones. Personally, I tried drawing my friend recently and it struggled with making the cheeks a warmer color without it looking like makeup. I watched a tutorial and realized my mistake was using red tones on the cheeks instead of orange tones. To draw different hair textures, look at references of real people, but also look at people with similar styles to yours and see how they stylize hair. One of my characters, Sage, has loose curly hair. I really struggle with drawing this hair texture as I'm afraid to draw it too detailed or too stylized. To combat this, I searched up loose curly hair drawings on Pinterest and saved photos of characters with similar hair textures to hers. Using those stylized examples and real-life images, I can now better draw her hair in my style. With body and anatomy, this may take more practice, but it is possible. Struggling with this is understandable because you have to learn how the body holds weight. It's similar to how clothes are the hardest thing for most beginners to draw. I know we've all struggled with not knowing where to draw the folds and creases. Similarly with the body, a bigger body folds and wrinkles in different ways to a smaller one. When your commission terms state that you can draw humans, it's a bit disappointing when those humans are limited to small, fair-skinned ones. Mixing it up and expanding your skills helps you reach a broader audience. Your current customers would also be more satisfied with your work because their OCs are more accurately drawn. Now, this opinion doesn't apply to recreational art because that art is made just for you. You're free to draw your biases, but it's still good to diversify. A few times, I've seen some artists with OCs that look so similar that I struggle to tell them apart. It's hard to get engaged in a story when I keep confusing the blonde blue-eyed guy with the blonde green-eyed guy. Your character designs will greatly improve if they're all recognizably different. Speaking of diversity, drawing diverse characters isn't forced representation. There was a drama on TikTok a while back when people bullied this artist for making human designs of My Little Pony characters that were quote-unquote too diverse. There were disabled characters, plus-size characters, characters with dwarfism, etc. I guess the community saw it as too try-hard. I think it's obvious that the point of the designs was to make the characters represent a bunch of underrepresented groups though. I don't know why people went so crazy over it. This forced representation point is applied to any media that doesn't have a cast of all fair-skinned small characters. For example, how mad people were at Turning Red. The movie took place in Toronto, a place known for having a mix of races and ethnicities, but somehow people were shocked to see that represented. I honestly have mixed feelings about the word representation as a whole, because sometimes it feels like minorities and people of color are just a box to check, not characters that happen to be a woman or Asian or plus size, etc. Sometimes it actually does feel like pandering with no substance. That's why I dislike the recent live actions that have been coming out. Instead of giving us our own stories, You replace characters with actors of color who you know are gonna get torn apart online, like what happened with the Snow White actress Rachel Zegler and Halle Bailey as the Little Mermaid. Now for the most current discussion. AI art isn't real art. I feel like I'd be preaching to the choir if I really got into this, but I couldn't make an art commentary video without mentioning AI at some point. I could offer my own perspective as an artist in a tech field. In grade 12, I was debating between getting an art degree or a computer science degree, and I decided to play for the enemy. I'm sorry. I will repent for my sins. But being for real, sometimes I do see people using AI art on some assignments and it just makes me cringe a little bit. I don't expect them to know why AI art is bad or to even care actually, so I just don't mention it. It's just a little disappointing, you know? It's hard to explain why generative AI is bad to someone who doesn't have any artistic or creative interests. They don't know the time and passion you put into your work and how insulting and scummy it is to have a machine regurgitate it. I feel like at the very least, they should be able to understand the copyright violations. I'm surprised those big companies like Disney haven't sued people over it yet. I assume it's because they also plan to use AI to make their movies. I know there's been AI spotted in some Disney properties already, like the show Secret Invasions was accused of using AI art in the intro sequence. I think companies are just testing the waters, slowly introducing it and seeing how the public reacts. Guys, can we have another strike because this is actually getting out of hand now. Another point related to AI, calling current AI art poor quality isn't actually an own. AI is rapidly advancing. I even saw my younger cousin watching some AI cartoons and the videos weren't even that warped. Even I find myself getting fooled by AI art recently. They no longer all have that airbrushed, uncanny, dream-like look to them or that anime style. They're starting to pass as work made by real artists. The more the generators are used, the better they'll get, and they're being used a lot. I feel like there are better AI criticisms that we can use rather than just saying that AI art looks bad. Talk about how it uses stolen, copyrighted artwork, or its effect on the environment, or how it's being used to take jobs, or how it's going to lead to a general lack of quality media if everything we see is regurgitated from something from the past. Not everyone cares about the quality of art, but they may care about issues that would directly affect them. Cleaning up AI art doesn't make it real art. I've seen a few dramas where artists are generating an AI image then cleaning it up to make it look like their own. It's honestly kind of embarrassing. Just draw yourself at that point. I think some people are too afraid to be bad at drawing that they'd rather take the cheap way out and have a computer do it for them. Like, they don't realize that this is the journey that every single artist prior to AI had to go through. No one is born good at art. The great artists don't post their flop pieces. It's okay to be bad at it at first. If you actually draw the stuff yourself, you'll get better. I think even the people who clean up AI art have to at least feel a bit of shallowness in their quote-unquote work. They didn't make it. They just gave something sloppy a little polish. I feel bad for the artists who now feel forced to take jobs where they have to clean up AI images. You go to school for 4 years just to not be able to draw anything. You're instead part of the system. It's just sad. This issue also brings up another point about people thinking that artists are pretentious or elitist for thinking AI art isn't real art. It's funny because art has to be one of the most accessible hobbies out there. All you need are a few dollars to buy a pencil and paper and you can start creating. Don't know how to draw? Well, there are hundreds of tutorials posted for free on YouTube. Want more professional advice? Take an online class or an in-person one near you. Don't know how to improve? Make some art friends and have them critique your work. The art community is so welcoming and it's built on giving each other free resources and advice. There's a stereotype of the starving artist for a reason. Our work is often devalued, so we know that we have to help each other out so we can all succeed. Artists aren't being pretentious or elitist when they say AI art isn't real art, because it's not real art. It's stolen work mushed together by a computer. There's no person who created it, only a prompter. Overall, I think people just need to try a little more. They're seeing that something they thought was easy actually takes a lot of work and learning, and instead of taking on the challenge, they take the easy way out. It's rewarding when you finally feel satisfied with the art you're creating, when you can finally carry out the visions that kid you dreamed of. Feeling demotivated, then looking back at your progress and seeing how far you've come. You miss out on the joy of creating art if you refuse to create art. Hard pivot? It's NSFW time. Minors shouldn't be posting suggestive / NSFW art. At least in Canada and America, it's illegal to even be looking at that stuff when you're below 18. Still, there's been controversies about minors posting art that's too suggestive. I remember there was this artist that I temporarily followed. They're in their mid to late teens, I believe. Suddenly, I see them posting art that feels kind of fetishy, suggestive. It just made me very uncomfortable, so I instantly unfollowed. That could be its own point too. Please put a warning in your bio if you draw suggestive artwork. It's kind of a jump scare to follow an artist because of one safe for work artwork you see, then start getting fetish art on your feed with no warning. Tangent aside, posting stuff like that when you're underage puts you in a vulnerable situation. I'll elaborate on this more in the next point. If you want to make that kind of art, just keep it to yourself. Most times, there's not much wrong with drawing NSFW stuff. It's when you expose it to others where you risk getting in trouble. You don't have to show people the freaky things you make. Just wait till you're of age and you can freely show it without putting yourself or others at risk. Adding on to that point, minors shouldn't be in NSFW spaces. You're putting the other adults in that space at risk. If an adult unknowingly sends a minor NSFW art, the adult can still get in legal trouble. You also risk getting taken advantage of by an adult. Even if you lie about your age, most proper adults can still tell when they're talking to a kid / teenager and can still take advantage of that. Again, it's not worth it to put yourself and others at risk over something as trivial as NSFW art. This is a disgusting one. Last NSFW topic, feeding it to young characters is weird and gross. It doesn't matter if the character is not real. You're getting off to the concept of a child. It is such a weak defense. Stories are meant to immerse you, make you feel for those characters as if they were real. They represent real things, real experiences. If you see a character that is meant to represent a real child and you feel those feelings, that is disgusting. I hear this defense of child NSFW art mostly from the anime community. It's unfortunate the amount of weird fan service you gotta look past to enjoy a lot of anime shows. Like one of my favorite anime shows, Kakegurui, has a huge problem with this. There are so many upskirts. Honestly, I don't even care about I'm figuring out how to censor this for YouTube. The very passionate, excited, the pleasured faces. Yeah, let's go with that. I don't really care about the pleasured faces they make because that stuff's just funny and I feel like it serves the universe. Like, people are so crazy about the game that they get a sick pleasure from it. If you guys are liking this video, I can make some more art commentary videos to draw to. If you're interested, I can make an art drama version where I give a recap on all the biggest art dramas from our community, from Colleen to Creepshow art. Subscribe so you won't miss more art commentary videos. Moving on, but still somewhat related to NSFW, I think aging up characters and drawing them in adult scenarios is fine. If the character looks visibly older and acts older, the art is no longer in illegal territory. Personally, I still wouldn't consume art like that because, I don't know, it would still feel kind of off. I've just never looked at a young character and thought, damn, I kind of want to envision them older and with their clothes off. But you do you. I wouldn't judge someone for that. I guess it gets complicated when the character you're aging up was already near the legal age. Like, how differently would you draw a 16-year-old versus an 18-year-old, you know? I think when it comes to posting that type of art, you have to make it very clear that you're drawing their adult self to avoid controversy. You wouldn't want someone to think you're drawing their minor selves. With my own characters, they're all between 15 and 17 years old, but I've thought about situations involving them in their adult years and whether I would post that. I wouldn't want someone to think I'm drawing their teen selves, but it would also get kind of annoying plastering "these are their adult versions" everywhere. Tracing. An evergreen art commentary topic. I believe tracing is good to do, but bad to post. Tracing and heavily copying other artists' work is very beneficial in helping you get better at your craft. You pay great attention to all the details in their art, and the little nuances in the way they paint each stroke. Their use of colors, textures, shading, patterns, all adding to your mental library of art knowledge. It's an easy way to learn a lot, and it's satisfying when it comes out looking like the original artist's piece. The problem with tracing isn't tracing itself, it's posting it for others to see. When you post traced art, people don't take it as you posting to show what you've learned. It just looks like you're trying to pass off someone else's hard work as your own. It may also be a copyright violation to copy someone's artwork that closely, depending on where you live. Artists already have to deal with their art getting stolen, reposted, used illegally on merchandise, and much more. People tracing their art just adds on to that pile of people who refuse to create and instead choose to steal from them. So again, if you want to trace someone's art, whether recreationally or for education, don't post it online. Fixing art is a complicated topic. Usually when an artist fixes the art of another artist, creator, or studio, they do so because the original art/character was offensive. A recent example would be the controversy with Genshin Impact's first plus-size/non-slim character, Baressa. The character was at most curvy, but still mostly slim. I haven't played the game myself, but from the images and videos I've watched on the topic, the character was often seen eating lots of food and crushing enemies by sitting on them. Most also initially assumed the character was based on a cow. All of these features made the character seem like a mockery of plus-size people instead of representation. There was art made in response, thickening her so that she actually looked chubby/plus size. Most other examples of artists fixing art made by established companies are similar. Company makes a stereotype instead of proper representation, fandom calls them out and makes an alternative design that removes the offensive parts. There's also an alternative to fixing art, which is redesigning art. There's a big difference between the two. Fixing art means fixing the bad parts of the source art. Redesigning art means remaking the source art with your own vision, with no disrespect for the source. It's kind of like the redesign is an alternate universe, while the fixed art is a better universe. I don't even know if that analogy made any sense. Please tell me you're following. Sometimes, the line between redesigns and fixing art is blurred, like with what's seen with critics of Pop, the creator of Has Been Hotel and Helluva Boss. Is it Helluva Boss or Helluva Boss? I honestly don't know. Some believe that her characters would read better with less details. I would say these artists kind of skirt that line of fixing and redesigning because most times it also comes with a disrespect of the source art and thinking that their new designs look better than the original. As Pop is an established creator, successful enough to have a show streaming on Amazon Prime, it's punching up. In my opinion, I don't think it's bad to fix or redesign her work. The issue comes with fixing smaller artists' work. It's fine to redesign and fix the artwork of a studio or established creator, because that is ultimately you critiquing and reviewing their work. When artists become professionals, they're expected to hear critiques and use that to improve their work. When you fix and redesign the art of a random artist on Twitter though, that's just unsolicited advice. Some OCs are really personal to an artist, so it's weird to think you could do a better job of designing their own OC. We'll get into this topic of unsolicited criticism in the next point. Overall, fixing and redesigning art is fine, as long as the art you're fixing belongs to a studio or otherwise professional creator. You do not need to fix the art of a casual artist. Not everyone wants to hear your criticism, no matter how constructive it is. Some people draw casually and don't care much about improving their art or technique. They just want to draw cute characters, and that's okay. You may also be critiquing something that they intentionally did, like a quirk in their art style. What reads as an anatomical error to you may be a conscious choice made by the artist. Like, imagine telling the creator of Powerpuff Girls that they drew the eyes too big, when that's the whole charm of the art style. If it comes to something more polished, like a comic or animated series, criticisms may be welcome, at least in my opinion. Commenting that the text is too small or the fashion colors make it hard to watch may be a valid criticism. You may have different opinions on when it's appropriate to leave criticism. If so, let me know down below. Oh my, okay, this one is more of a TikTok issue. Guys, don't bully young/beginner artists. Don't bully any artists in general, but especially not the ones who just started. It feels like every few months there's a new drama involving everyone harassing a beginner artist for something that looks kind of off. There's that whole art lord trend, you know? Someone was proud of their art and decided to share it with the world just to get bullied and harassed off the platform. How are these artists meant to improve when all they're hearing are insults and mockery? It takes a while to not take criticism personally, so to straight up bully someone for drawing something a little poorly is kind of cruel. That's just going to discourage them from trying again and make them quit just because you wanted to make a snarky comment. Next, you aren't in competition with other artists. This is more of an internalized issue than one that gets projected onto others for the most part. As artists, I think we've all had insecurities about our progression in comparison to our peers. Like, how dare that 12-year-old be a better artist than me? It's this mindset of seeing art as a race that harms us. There is no race, so it doesn't matter how long it takes you to reach a certain skill level. And it doesn't matter if someone reaches that level before or after you. This stuff is easier said than believed though. I also still have trouble with comparing my skills to others. If it's hard for you to stop comparing your skills to others, I've got 2 tips that may be helpful. First tip, remember that you don't have the full context behind the artwork. What I mean by this is that an artist may post super often, making it look like they're drawing something new every day when they're actually just reposting old art. Or for younger artists, they may have better skills than you did at their age, but it's because they had access to more resources than you did. There may be missing context explaining why an artist seems to be better than you, because as we know, social media isn't reality. They may have certain advantages that you don't have, or they only post the good art that they make. So there's no point in comparing yourself to them. Second tip is a positive spin on comparing your art to others. When you see an artist who draws better than you, instead of going, damn, my stuff sucks, think, what is it about their art that makes it good? Note the details, like the way they exaggerate shapes or the texture of their line art. Why be self-deprecating when you can learn instead? These 2 mindset changes have greatly changed the way I consume art and judge my skills, so I hope it helps you too. Next,
people should have consideration when making exposed docs.
If you watch Ponder Sprocket, you probably know what I'm talking about. A while ago, I went down this YouTube rabbit hole watching a bunch of 15-year-olds accuse each other of being making exposed videos and docs against each other over drawing barely suggestive artwork. I've never felt old until binging a few of those and thinking, damn, this is all so stupid and immature. I don't know, I feel like I'm starting to outgrow these petty art drama videos. Anyways, although a lot of those videos and docs are made from a place of immaturity, like wanting to get back on an old friend by accusing them of bad things, that doesn't take away from their seriousness. You cannot loosely call people because they drew art you don't like. You can't send your audience to harass other artists because they hurt your feelings. That stuff can stain someone's reputation. There's also something I've seen getting criticized more often. Docs that have too much information and docs that have too little information. It's obvious why a doc with little information and proof would get criticized. There's little evidence of any misdeed. Docs with too much information also get criticized because it can be seen as trying to overwhelm people with information so that they don't look too deeply into it. Well, if there able to fill 200 pages with evidence of bad behavior, they must have done something wrong. But then when someone unemployed enough actually looks at their evidence, it's all exaggerations and twisting words to fit their agenda. I don't know what's considered a sweet spot for a doc's length, but I think if you're nearing hundreds of pages, you should probably make one summary doc with the most damning evidence, and then another one with all the information in case someone wants more proof. I think it's also good to consider why you're making a doc in the first place. If you're exposing someone for being a bit of a bad friend, that's a private issue that doesn't need to be exposed to thousands online. Sometimes someone may wrong you and it feels unfair, but you don't have to take those grievances to strangers online. Vent to your friends, give mutuals a heads up of red flags, but don't take it to the public. Again, when you make a private issue public, your audience may come after the person you're exposing with way more energy than they actually deserve. If you're exposing someone for posting illegal material or harming others, that is worth exposing. There's a reason to bring that to the public because keeping it private puts more people at risk. They deserve to be called out so that they can get consequences and hopefully change their behavior. Overall, consider the weight of your accusations and whether the conflict is better left resolved offline. Another common art TikTok drama. Don't rag on people for having a quote-unquote problematic art style. Apparently there's something called a pro shipper art style. Okay, first let me explain what a pro shipper is. A pro shipper is someone who believes it's okay to ship fictional characters with anyone, including stuff like and abuse dynamics. Okay, so I probably have to censor all of those words. Let's use Gravity Falls as an example. They'd think shipping Mabel and Dipper is fine, or shipping Grunkle Stan and Wendy is fine. Just controversial ships. I could probably make a separate video getting into pro-ship versus anti-ship debate because I am anti-problematic ships, but I also understand some talking points of pro-shippers. Like, I do think it's kind of silly to seek out stuff you don't like. I also understand it from a coping mechanism perspective. There's a lot to debate there. Let me know if you'd want a video discussing whether pro-shippers are valid or not. Anyways, tangent aside, pro-shippers are generally looked at with disgust. So if someone says you draw like a pro-shipper, it's pretty derogatory. The art styles that are called pro-shipper art styles also tend to have nothing in common. Honestly, I think it's just rage bait. Similarly, the jelly art style is kind of controversial. It's not exactly seen as a problematic art style in the same way the pro-shipper art style is seen, but there's been a lot of drama surrounding it. The jelly art style involves drawing cute girls with big eyes and glossy skin. The drawings are usually bust shots with the girls looking at the camera with a blank stare or slight smile. They're rendered in a painterly style. The art style got a huge rise with the artist Puririca being the most known for drawing in this style. Then everyone randomly flipped and started hating on it. Puririca also got into her own controversy, which also led to these anti-jelly style beliefs. People started calling the art style overrated, and it was no longer cool to draw in that way. The TikTok art community has a huge problem with boosting and falling for rage bait. If you see an extreme silly comment like you drew the eyes too big and therefore you like kids, just block and move on. There's no point in investing energy into debating them or defending yourself when they're just trying to get a reaction out of you and make you mad. And those are all of my random art opinions. Again, subscribe if you want to see a part 2. Check out my other art and commentary videos on screen now. Bye bye!